And the purpose of universal basic income is not meant to be a job replacement for those truckers. Because right now, those truckers, and when I talk to the truck drivers, so I've been campaigning for president now for a number of months. So I spend a lot of time in Iowa, which is a really huge trucking hub. And you go to them and say, hey guys, you worried about robot trucks taking your jobs? They're like, there's no way a robot could take my job. Like that's like totally matter of fact. They're like, this is not something that they worry about.
Mm.
Their attitude has transitioned from that somewhat to we should make robot trucks illegal, or we should make it so that a robot truck cannot displace me. So that's been a big shift, because a year ago they were like, it's impossible.
The idea that an American would say we should make a robot job illegal, like we should have some laws that keep you from being free to use robots for your business instead of a person. Like you should be forced to hire, like mandatory unionization or something. That sounds pretty ridiculous.
Well, that's where a lot of them are, Joe.
Yeah.
So only 13% of truckers are unionized. So 87% are like dentists, where they're small independent firms.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them actually bought or leased their own trucks. So they took out tens of thousands of dollars, in the equivalent of a mortgage, to get this truck. And so if they have to compete against a robot truck that doesn't stop, that's like, that's existential level stuff.
Yeah.
And right now, truck drivers have time use regulations where they cannot drive more than 14 hours a day. So you literally cannot compete.
Right.
Because the robot truck's just going to keep going hour 15, 16, 17, et cetera. So these guys some of them make really good money. Like some of them make $70,000, $75,000, $80,000. It's one of the higher paying jobs for men without a, college degree. And so if you look at what they're facing, it's not so crazy that they're like, hey, you need to make the robots illegal, because for them, what is the next best economic alternative if the robot trucks take over that job? Like,
Well,
where are they going to go from?
Yeah, it's not crazy for them, but it's a crazy idea to tell a company that they can't do something that's more efficient, safer, and probably economically more viable.
Oh, yeah. Again, the savings from automating truck driving are estimated to be $168 billion per year. And not just labor savings, but also equipment utilization, because the trucks never stop. Fuel efficiency, because the trucks can daisy chain together, so there's less wind resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Fewer accidents, because right now truck accidents kill about 4,000 people a year. So you'd probably save lives. There's a very, very powerful argument for the fact that we should be trying to automate this stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you have literally 3.5 million truckers who rely upon this for their livelihoods, to support their family. And there's going to be a lot of passion, a lot of resistance to this. Anyone who thinks the truck drivers are just going to shrug and be like, all right, I guess I had a good run, I'm just going to go home and figure it out, that's not going to be their response.
Right.
It's going to be much more likely that they say, you need to make these robot trucks illegal, or they're just going to park their trucks across the highway, get their guns out, because a lot of these guys are ex-military, and just be like, hey, like, I'm not moving my truck until, I get my job back. And there'll be a lot of truckers in the same situation.
You really think that would happen?
Well, I think
they would block the highway for their job back. That's less efficient, kills more people.
So I was with these truckers in the truck stop in Altoona, Iowa. And Joe, they have really, really difficult jobs. I mean, I don't know if you knew truckers where you were, but they have this 14-hour window where they're allowed to drive their truck, and they drive most of that. So they have these other 10 hours, and they sleep in their truck. Their trucks have a bed. They go into the truck stop. They take a shower. There's a laundry. And they're like plugged into this machine of this truck and the industry. They spend days, sometimes weeks on the road.
A lot of them listen to podcasts. Probably a lot of them listening right now.
A lot of them listen to podcasts. And they're doing it primarily because it's a more lucrative opportunity than the other jobs that are available to them. A lot of them have families that like supporting their families. And so if you say, hey guys, time's up for this way of life, most of them, I think, will not. Actually, I look at how much they endure. There's so much endurance baked into that job that I think most of them will be like some of the guys you and I know, where they're much more likely to implode or do something where it's self-destructive than they would be to take their truck and park it across the highway.
Mm.
But you're talking about a population of hundreds of thousands, including many small business owners. And small business owners have a different mentality very often. Like, I've been an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur for like last 20 years. Like, you're an entrepreneur. And if you saw this happen, you might say, hey, I'm adaptable. I'll figure it out. Or you might say, hey, I think I can do something about this. Like, if I park my truck this way, like, that's going to cause such havoc that it's, it's like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of economic harm very, very fast. And if you look at the Industrial Revolution, which people cite as the precursor to what we're going through, there were mass riots in the Industrial Revolution that killed dozens of people, caused billions of dollars worth of damage. Labor Day is a holiday today because of those riots. And then we implemented universal high school in 1911, in part as a response to these riots. So according to the estimates, this is called the fourth industrial revolution. And we're going to displace jobs at 3 to 4 times the rate of that industrial revolution. And that industrial revolution included mass riots. So thinking that this one will not strikes me as really, really optimistic and perhaps unrealistic.
Mm. What do you see coming when you think that these jobs are going to be automated, and then universal basic income is going to supplement it's going to give them some money, $1,000 a month. But where do they go from there? I mean, how do people exist on $12,000 a year? Like, what do they do? Like, how do they adapt to this new world?
Right. So the first thing you have to do is you have to look at what lies ahead if we do nothing.
Right.
So the way it's going to play out is that self-driving trucks are slowly going to start hitting the highways. Amazon's testing them out right now. And the first stage is going to be that there's a human driver just sitting there as a failsafe, and the truck's going to drive itself. Now, my friends in Silicon Valley are working on teleoperators, which is, so the trucks have right now like a 98% accuracy level, which is not very high because you can't have 2% semi-trucks like running into things or like going up the roads. So the way they're trying to get the last percent or so is they're equipping trucks with teleoperating software, which means that a teleoperator in Nevada or Arizona will beam into the truck and just be able to see out the front like a video game. It's like drone operating, but instead it's a truck. And
Right.
you beam in, and then you just steer the truck and tell the computer is like, I got it from here, and then you beam out. That's what they're working on to try and catch that last bit of uncertainty. So the innovations are happening, and again, Joe, we're talking about $168 billion a year. Like, everything becomes possible when you're looking at that much money. So in the absence of anyone doing anything, the robot trucks will start reducing shifts of various truckers, I would say 6 to 10 years from now. And so then there'll be a bunch of reactions. Now, trucking firms already have massive shortages. They can't find enough people. That's one reason why they're trying to automate this job as fast as they are, because they're literally they're short like a couple 100,000 truckers right now. And people don't want to go into this field for a variety of reasons. The main thing being it's like extraordinarily brutal on you physically. Very, very bad for your family life too, because you're away all the time.
Yeah.
Something like 88% of truckers have an early marker for chronic disease, like substance abuse, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, something along those lines. And now people think that the job's going to disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. So you can't get people in. So if you play out what happens when the robot trucks start reducing shifts, then there'll be people trying to flee the field of trucking. And then if it becomes really dramatic where the robots start driving, let's say between Western Pennsylvania and Nevada, and then human beings get in those states and then take it the rest of the way, because the robots won't be reliable enough to drive in urban areas. They'll be reliable enough to drive on an interstate where they just have to make a few decisions. Then there'll be a massive depletion of truck driving opportunities. And then, in my mind, a lot of suicides, a lot of self-destruction. And I don't say that lightly. I say that based upon the fact that that's what happened to the manufacturing workers. Mm-hmm. Where if you unpack what happened to the manufacturing workers of Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, suicide rates spiked to a point where now our life expectancy as a country has declined for the last 3 years because of suicides and drug overdoses. It's the first time that's happened since the great flu pandemic of 1918. Like, we are actually coming apart as a country by the numbers. So what happened to the manufacturing workers will then happen to the truckers, but at an even more dramatic scale. So you'll see truckers going home and drinking themselves to death, or doing drugs and overdosing, or killing themselves. And then eventually there'll be an outbreak of violence because some truckers will say, instead of killing myself, how about I go bust up a robot truck? And there are already truckers that are doing things like blocking Tesla recharging stations at electronic vehicle battery stations because they don't like electronic trucks.
Sorta. Those are pickup trucks, though. Those are assholes. I mean, this is not like people doing it because they think that these Tesla recharge stations are taking jobs away. They're just being dickheads.
Exactly, Joe. So if you're going to be a dickhead, even though it really has nothing to do with you,
Right.
imagine when you actually think your livelihood's being threatened.
Right. Good point.
Then you can see it getting revved up, to like a much higher level.
Yeah.
So I'm running for president in large part because I think we need to get in front of this set of problems. We have to say, look, if we're going to save $168 billion a year, maybe some of that should go to the truckers and give them a soft landing. Maybe we should have this universal basic income where everyone feels like they're getting $1,000 a month, which is not a work replacement. It's not going to make their lives easy. They still need to work, but at least it takes the edge off. It takes like the existential threat off. And also their kids getting it. So they feel like, okay, my kid actually has some kind of path to the future. And it's not like, if I lose this trucking job, not only am I going to, struggle and suffer, but my kid will too. So my plan as president is to install a trucker transition czar and say, look, it is your job to try and manage this transition for the 3.5 million truckers. And Joe, we haven't even talked about the 5 million Americans who work at truck stops, motels, diners, retail establishments, all the places where the truckers stop every day just to get out, eat a meal, and, like live a life. I mean, if you imagine those communities when the trucks don't stop, there's going to be a drying up of economic vitality on a level that's unprecedented in many of these